Ships looking for Flight MH370 will spend several more days listening for any underwater signals that may come from the plane's black boxes before sending a mini submarine to scour the seabed. The decision comes amid signs that a possible beacon signal may be fading 32 days after the plane went missing. These ticking sounds are the so-called pings that could possibly be a black box signal. This time, the signal registered 33.2 kilohertz, different from the usual 37.5 kilohertz transmission from a flight data recorder. But the Australian search coordinator says such a decline is consistent with changes that could happen in such deep water. He says he's personally listened to the pings and that they do indeed sound like a credible lead. The problem, though, is that the crew hasn't been able to find the pings again, and those final clues are needed to help narrow the hunt before they send their robot sub underwater.
It is a large area for a small submersible that has a very narrow field of search. And of course, it's literally crawling along the bottom of the ocean. So it's going to take a long, long time. That's why it's so important to try and get another transmission.
All the same, he ruled out sending more ships to help with the task because this would compromise the need for utter silence to best detect the signals. Meanwhile, Malaysia's acting Transport Minister Hishammuddin Hussein has acknowledged that language and cultural barriers were major challenges to his government's handling of the MH370 crisis. Mr. Hishammuddin is also the country's defence minister, and he revealed that come this Friday, Malaysia's cabinet will table an internal inquiry into his ministry's response to the crisis.
Mr. Hishammuddin, who's been the public face for the crisis, says language and cultural barriers were to blame for the sometimes confusing and conflicting messages from the Malaysian government.
Lost in translation, and that has happened many times, and information being relayed in real time through social media can be wrongly interpreted. Wrongly exploited in some cases where we ourselves have not been sensitive to the cultural differences that exist. If you're talking about 14 different nationals on the plane, if you're talking about 26 nations involved in the SAR operations, it is a major task for a small country like Malaysia to coordinate, and I don't think we have done too badly.
Are you concerned about possible conflict of interest? At some point, we're going to talk about insurance claim. We're going to talk about compensation. And I know you have stood by MAS through all these difficult times. But there will be a time, there will be a conflict of interest. How are you going to deal with that?
Well, we have to learn from Air France. We have to learn from Silk Air. But I have to be very sensitive to the families when we're talking about compensation, we're talking about insurance, we're talking about bank accounts being frozen, and I'm always thinking, I'm thinking only of them, not about glory, not about news that can be reported around the world. It's about the families. It's not even about the plane, actually. The plane doesn't mean anything without the passengers inside it.
Over the next few days, the focus will be on verifying the acoustic signals, whether they are coming from MH370 black boxes. Mr. Hishammuddin said Malaysia will be sending more ships to the search areas northwest of Perth, adding that it's not an issue whether his government takes charge of the black box investigation or not. What's important is to find the truth on what actually happened to MH370. Melissa Goh, Channel News Asia, Kuala Lumpur.